Picture this. It's 3 a.m. and you're lying in bed scrolling through Instagram, watching your friends post vacation photos from Bali while you're doing mental math about whether you can actually afford your electricity bill this month. Your car made a weird noise yesterday, and instead of just getting it checked, you're lying awake running through worst-case scenarios. $500 repair? $1,000? What if it's the transmission? You know that one unexpected expense could unravel your entire financial situation. And that knowledge sits in your chest like a weight you can't shake off. Here's what most people don't realize. There's a specific dollar amount that eliminates almost all of these 3 a.m. anxiety sessions. And it's not $100,000 or even $50,000. The number that fundamentally transforms how you move through the world is $10,000. I'm Jade, and I spend way too much time researching financial psychology and why hitting $10,000 in savings doesn't just change your bank account. It literally rewires how your brain handles risk, opportunities, and every decision you make. Today, we're breaking down exactly what happens psychologically, practically, and neurologically when you cross this specific threshold. If you've wondered what it actually feels like to have financial security or how certain money milestones transform your entire decision-making process, make sure to hit that subscribe button because what I'm about to show you will probably change how you think about saving money forever. The life you're living without savings. You know that thing you do at the grocery store where you're adding up prices in your head as you shop? Not because you enjoy math, but because you genuinely need to know if you can afford everything in your cart before you get to the register. You're standing there trying to decide between the name brand cereal you actually like and the store brand that tastes like cardboard dust. And the decision isn't really about preference. It's about whether you can justify spending an extra $2 when you know your bank account is running close to empty. Or here's another one. Your friends text the group chat about going out for dinner Friday night. Everyone's excited, throwing around restaurant suggestions, and you're sitting there crafting some elaborate excuse about why you can't make it. You're not actually busy. You're not sick. You just know that a $25 meal would completely derail your budget for the week. And admitting that feels more embarrassing than just lying about having other plans. This is the daily reality for millions of people, living paycheck to paycheck. And here's what makes it so exhausting. It's not just about having less money. It's about the constant mental calculation happening in the background of literally everything you do. Every single purchase decision becomes this weird internal negotiation. Can I afford this? Do I really need this? What happens if I buy this and then something breaks next week? Your brain is running financial disaster simulations 24/7. What if my car breaks down? What if I get sick and can't work? What if my laptop dies and I need it for my job? Each scenario branches into more scenarios, and you're carrying around this massive cognitive load that most people don't even recognize as stress until it's gone. But here's where it gets really interesting. And this is something most financial advice completely misses. The problem isn't just the stress. The stress is actually preventing you from seeing opportunities that could improve your situation. When you're in pure survival mode, your brain literally can't process long-term strategic thinking. You're so focused on making it through this week, this month, this paycheck, that you become blind to chances that could actually change your trajectory. The neuroscience of $10,000. So what actually happens in your brain when you hit that $10,000 mark? There's real science here that most people don't know about, and it explains why this specific amount creates such a dramatic shift in how you experience daily life. Neuroscientists have found that financial insecurity keeps your cortisol levels elevated. Cortisol is your body's stress hormone, and it's supposed to spike in short bursts when you face immediate threats, then return to normal. But when you're constantly worried about money, your cortisol stays elevated chronically. This does something really specific to your brain. It keeps you locked in what researchers call your reptilian brain, the part that handles basic survival instincts. When your reptilian brain is running the show, your prefrontal cortex, which handles complex decision-making, strategic planning, and creative problem-solving, basically gets turned down. It's like your brain is saying, look, we don't have time for long-term planning right now. We're in survival mode. This is why people who are financially stressed often make decisions that seem irrational from the outside. It's not stupidity, it's neurobiology. But here's what happens when you hit $10,000 in savings. Your cortisol levels start to normalize because your brain recognizes you have a buffer against immediate threats. This isn't me being motivational, this is measurable biological change. And when your cortisol drops, your prefrontal cortex comes back online, suddenly you can think strategically again. You can see patterns and opportunities you were literally neurologically incapable of processing before. There's this fascinating study where researchers gave people financial security and then tested their cognitive function. People with a financial cushion scored significantly higher on tests measuring executive function, working memory, and fluid intelligence. Not because they got smarter, but because financial stress was no longer consuming their mental bandwidth. Here's the wild part. Most people who reach $10,000 in savings never actually spend it on emergencies. The real value isn't in using the money, it's in knowing it's there. This psychological effect creates what financial researchers call a confidence cascade. You walk into job interviews differently when you're not desperate for the position. You negotiate better because you have the freedom to walk away from bad deals. You make better decisions across the board because you're not operating from a place of fear. And this confidence shift isn't just internal. Other people can sense it. There's actual research showing that people perceive financially secure individuals as more competent, more trustworthy, more attractive as business partners. It's not fair, but it's real. And that perception opens doors that stay closed when you're radiating financial desperation. When disasters become inconveniences. Let me paint you a picture of how dramatically life changes when you have that $10,000 cushion. Remember that check engine light scenario? When you're living paycheck to paycheck, that light turning on triggers immediate panic. Your heart rate spikes, you're mentally calculating credit card limits and whether you'll need to borrow from family. The stress can literally ruin your entire week. Now imagine that same check engine light with $10,000 in savings. You see it. You're annoyed. You think, well, that's inconvenient. I'll get it checked this week. Then you continue with your day. The light didn't disappear. The problem didn't change. But your entire emotional response is completely different. This shift from panic to mild annoyance cascades through your entire existence in ways you probably don't expect. When you're not constantly flooded with financial stress hormones, you sleep better. And I mean measurably better. Studies show people with emergency funds fall asleep faster, sleep more deeply, and wake up more rested. Financial stress is one of the leading causes of insomnia, and removing it has immediate health benefits. Your relationships transform, too. You're simply more emotionally available when you're not carrying chronic financial anxiety, less irritable with your partner, more patient with your kids, actually present in conversations instead of running background calculations about bills. But here's what people rarely discuss. When you have no savings, every social interaction involving money becomes stressful. Friends suggest dinner? Stress. Family birthday coming up? Stress. Someone wants to split an Uber? Stress. You start avoiding people not because you don't want to see them, but because participating in normal social activities could derail your entire budget. With $10,000 saved, you stop making excuses. You can say yes to reasonable plans without mental gymnastics about your checking account. This matters more than you'd think because social isolation correlates strongly with both financial stress and depression. Having savings doesn't just change your bank account, it literally changes your social life. Then there's decision fatigue. Every day you make thousands of tiny financial calculations. Generic pasta or name brand, premium gas or regular, new socks or keep wearing the holy ones. Each micro decision burns mental energy, leaving you exhausted by evening from constantly calculating whether you can afford basic things. But when you have savings, roughly 90% of these daily decisions become irrelevant. You're not choosing generic pasta because you're worried about your account balance. You're choosing based on what you actually prefer. This might sound trivial until you realize how much mental bandwidth you're currently burning on survival-level calculations. That energy doesn't disappear when you build savings. It gets redirected toward things that could actually improve your life, like career planning, skill development, or just being present with the people you care about. The opportunity unlock. Now here's where things get really interesting, and this completely changed how I think about emergency funds. Having $10,000 saved doesn't just protect you from disasters. It fundamentally changes what opportunities you can even perceive, let alone pursue. When you have zero savings, you're locked in what psychologists call a scarcity mindset. Your brain focuses so intensely on immediate threats that it filters out information about long-term opportunities. This isn't a character flaw, it's evolutionary biology. When resources are scarce, focusing on immediate survival makes sense. But it also blinds you to chances that could actually transform your situation. Think about it this way. Someone mentions a certification program that costs $1,500, but could increase your salary by $8,000 annually. If you're living paycheck to paycheck, this opportunity doesn't even register as real. You can't access $1,500, so your brain dismisses the information entirely. But with $10,000 saved, You can actually evaluate it. You probably won't pull from your emergency fund, but the opportunity becomes visible. You can plan to save an additional $1,500 over a few months while keeping your buffer intact. Or consider this. Your coworker mentions leaving for a better position and suggests you apply too. If you're broke and desperate, you won't even consider it. The risk of any transition period feels too dangerous. But with savings as a buffer, you can evaluate the opportunity strategically. Maybe it's a lateral move that positions you better for future growth. Maybe it's slightly less pay, but dramatically better work-life balance. When you're not operating from pure financial fear, you can make career decisions instead of just clinging to whatever paycheck you have. The confidence factor here is impossible to overstate. When you know you have money in the bank, you literally carry yourself differently. Body language shifts, tone changes. People unconsciously sense desperation versus security, and that perception affects everything from how seriously colleagues take your ideas to what salary offers you receive. I've watched this pattern repeatedly. Someone builds their first $10,000 and within 6 months gets a promotion or offer that seemed to appear from nowhere. But it didn't appear from nowhere. They became visible to opportunities because they stopped radiating financial desperation. They started taking calculated risks like speaking up in meetings, suggesting new ideas, volunteering for stretch assignments, things that feel impossibly risky when you're terrified of losing your income. Here's what nobody talks about. That first $10,000 proves something to yourself worth more than the money. It proves you're capable of setting a financial goal and actually achieving it. Most people have never done this. They've never set a serious financial target and hit it, so they don't really believe they can. But once you've saved $10,000, you have concrete evidence you're someone who accomplishes financial goals. That identity shift changes everything. Suddenly, the next $10,000 doesn't seem impossible. It seems inevitable. You're not the same person who started saving that first $1,000. You've developed new habits, new thinking patterns, new decision-making frameworks, and those compound exponentially. The person with $10,000 saved is actually closer to financial independence than someone earning twice as much with zero savings, because they've mastered the most critical wealth-building skill, which isn't making money, it's keeping money. The roadmap to your first $10,000. Okay, so at this point, you're probably thinking this all sounds great, but $10,000 feels completely impossible to save. I get it. When you're currently struggling to save even $100, hearing about a $10,000 goal can feel more discouraging than motivating. But here's what I need you to understand about the psychology of saving money. The hardest part isn't the amount, it's developing the identity of someone who saves. Most people approach saving like it's a temporary diet. They cut expenses dramatically for a few weeks, maybe save $500, then burn out completely and go back to old spending patterns. This doesn't work because willpower is a limited resource. You can't maintain extreme restrictions indefinitely. The people who actually reach $10,000 think about it completely differently. They're not trying to save money. They're trying to become a different type of person, someone who saves money. And that identity shift affects every micro decision you make throughout the day. Here's the brutal truth. Saving your first $1,000 is going to be hard. It requires real lifestyle changes and constant conscious effort. But saving your second $1,000 is noticeably easier because you've already built some habits and momentum. By the time you're working toward your fifth or $6,000, the process feels almost automatic. This is why the goal isn't really $10,000. The goal is to become someone for whom saving money is just part of their identity. Now let's talk actual strategy, because I'm not just going to tell you to save money and hope you figure it out. The biggest obstacle most people face is they don't actually know where their money is going. They think they do, but when you actually track every single purchase for a month, most people are genuinely shocked by what they find. The average person has somewhere between $200 to $400 per month in what I call financial leakage. Subscriptions they forgot about and aren't using. Convenience purchases that seem small but add up absurdly fast. The difference between cooking at home and ordering delivery. None of these individual expenses feel significant, but when you add them up over a month, you're looking at real money. If you could redirect even $250 per month toward savings, you'd have $3,000 in a year. In 3.5 years, you'd hit $10,000. And here's the thing, you probably have $250 in monthly leakage right now. You just don't see it because you've never actually tracked it. Start with this. For 1 month, track literally every purchase, every coffee, every app subscription, every impulse buy at the grocery store checkout. Don't try to change anything yet, just observe. Most people find at least $100 to $150 in obvious cuts just from this exercise. things they're paying for and literally not using or caring about. Then automate everything. Set up an automatic transfer the day after your paycheck hits. Even if it's just $50, even if it's $25, the amount matters less than the consistency because you're building an identity here. You're proving to yourself that you're someone who saves money every single month no matter what. Put that money in a separate savings account that's mildly annoying to access. Not impossible because this is still your emergency fund, but annoying enough that you won't casually dip into it for non-emergencies. Out of sight, out of mind actually works for building savings. As your income increases or as you find more optimization opportunities, increase your automatic transfer, but never decrease it. That's the rule. Your savings rate can only go up or stay the same, never down. This creates a ratchet effect that ensures you're always making progress. What happens next? Here's what most people don't realize about reaching $10,000 in savings. It's not an endpoint, it's a launch pad. Because once you've proven to yourself that you can save $10,000, your entire relationship with money fundamentally transforms. This is when people start getting genuinely interested in concepts like investing, building additional income streams, and optimizing their career trajectory. Not because they suddenly became financial geniuses, but because they finally have the mental space to think beyond just covering basic expenses. When you're not worried about rent money, you can start thinking about retirement accounts. When you're not stressed about grocery bills, you can research how to invest in index funds. The trajectory from $10,000 to $50,000 happens faster than from $0 to $10,000. And the jump from $50,000 to $100,000 happens faster still. Not because you're making more money, although you probably will be, but because you've developed the habits and identity of someone who builds wealth. Those habits compound exponentially over time. And here's something wild. The person you become while saving your first $10,000 is actually worth more than the money itself. You develop patience, you learn delayed gratification, you get better at distinguishing between wants and needs. You become skilled at finding ways to optimize without feeling deprived. These aren't just money skills, these are life skills that affect everything you do. That 3 a.m. anxiety I mentioned at the start, it doesn't just get better, it completely disappears. You'll still have problems, life doesn't become perfect, but they stop feeling catastrophic. You move through the world differently when you know you have a cushion. Your relationships deepen because you're not carrying chronic stress. Your career accelerates because you can take calculated risks. Your health improves because you're sleeping better and stressing less. Your decision-making sharpens because your prefrontal cortex isn't constantly overridden by survival panic. Every aspect of your life gets better, not because you have $10,000, but because you're no longer the person who needed to worry about not having it. So if you're currently staring at a bank balance that looks more depressing than motivating, here's what I want you to remember. Start absurdly small. Prove to yourself you can save something, anything, consistently for 3 months. Then gradually increase. Focus on becoming someone who saves, not just on hitting a number. Track your spending for 1 month and find your leakage. Automate your transfers, and trust that the process gets easier as momentum builds. The transformation waiting for you on the other side of $10,000 isn't just financial. It's psychological, neurological, social, and professional. It touches literally every corner of your existence in ways you probably can't even imagine right now. But thousands of people have walked this exact path before you, and every single one of them will tell you the same thing. The person you become while building that first $10,000 is worth infinitely more than the money itself. If this shifted your perspective on savings or gave you a framework you hadn't considered before, hit that like button and subscribe for more content on financial psychology and the actual mechanisms that create wealth. And drop a comment letting me know where you are right now in your savings journey.